continuing to join me as I discuss what spiritual warfare is and how to armor up for battle. Today is episode 19, and I'm going to talk about the 10 commandments and why they are so important in a Christian's life. These commandments represent God's personal interest in bringing out the best in his children so that we may live life to the fullest. These commandments set us apart, help us to identify right from wrong, and uphold the ultimate importance of love for God and your neighbor. Please stay tuned for more details. When you buy a new cell phone, computer, dresser, cabinet, car, or even when you open a new bank account, all these things come with instructions, manuals, guides, or information packets on how to use it or put it together. That's what the Bible is for Christians. The 10 Commandments are important because they serve as a guide for Christians when it comes to ensuring that God's will and way are respected. They show what God wishes from his people and what he forbids. As long as we follow the rules listed in the 10 Commandments, we will not commit any deadly sins against God. The 10 Commandments were mentioned twice in the Bible, first in Exodus 22 through 17, and then again in Deuteronomy 5, 6 through 21. Exodus 22 through 17 says, I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself an image in the form of anything in heaven above, or on the earth beneath, or in the waters below. You shall not bow down to them or worship them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, punishing the children for the sin of their parents to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me, but showing love to 1,000 generations of those who love me and keep my commandments. You shall not misuse the name of the Lord your God, for the Lord will not hold anyone guiltless who misuses his name. Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work, neither you, nor your son or daughter, nor your male or female servant, nor your animals, nor any foreigner residing in your towns. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea, and all that is in them. But he rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy. Honor your father and your mother, so that you may live long in the land the Lord your God is giving you. You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not give false testimony against your neighbor. You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, or his male or female servant, his ox or donkey, or anything that belongs to your neighbor. God made the first commandment because when the commandments were created, the Israelites had just come out of Egypt, which was a land that idolized many different gods, where each one represented a different aspect of life. It was common to worship a lot of gods in Egypt because the more gods that were worshipped, they felt the more blessings they would receive. So when God told his people to worship and believe in him, initially that wasn't so hard for them because he would have just been one more God to add to their list. But when he said, you shall have no other gods before me, that became more difficult for the people to accept. But if they didn't learn that the God who had led them out of Egypt was the only true God, they could not be his people, no matter how faithfully they kept the other 9 commandments. Today, we still allow many things to become gods to us, such as relationships, money, affirmation, work, or self-pleasures can become gods when we concentrate too much on them for personal identity, meaning, and security in life. Please understand that no one sets out with the intention of worshiping these things, but when too much time is spent on these other things in your life, you allow them to grow into other gods, which ultimately ends up controlling your thoughts, your time, and your energy. When we let God hold the central place in our hearts, minds, and lives, it will keep all those other things from turning into gods. God's name is special because it carries his personal identity that cannot be duplicated. Using God's name frivolously or while cursing is so common today that we don't even realize that we are using it or realize how serious it is. The way we use God's name expresses how we really feel about him. We should respect his name and use it appropriately, speaking it in praise or worship and not when cursing or joking. The Sabbath was a day set aside for rest and worship. God demands a Sabbath because we need to spend unhurried time in worship and rest each week. A God who is concerned enough to provide a day each week for us to rest is undeniably thoughtful and wonderful. Observing a regular time to rest and worship in our fast-paced world displays how important God is to us and refreshes our spirits. Don't neglect God's requirement to rest. The first 4 commandments show us how to relate to God. The next 6 shows us how to treat other people. The bans against murder, adultery, and stealing require us to respect the life, livelihood, possessions, and integrity of others. These are qualities for how God wants us to live today. To honor your mother and your father is the first commandment with a promise attached. To live in peace for generations in the promised lands, we need to respect authority and build strong families. Some people ask, what does it mean to honor your parents, and what if you had horrible parents? Partly it means speaking well of them and politely to them. It also means showing them courtesy and respect, but not obeying them if it means you have to disobey God. It means following their teaching and example when they put God first. Parents have a special place in God's sight. So even when you find it difficult to get along with your parents, you are still commanded to honor them. If you feel as though your parents were not great examples, know that they have to answer to God for not being a good steward over the child or children that God gave to them, but still honor them because it's a biblical commandment to follow. To give false testimony means to lie in court. God knew that Israel could not survive unless its system of justice was uncorruptible. We should be honest in our private dwellings as well as in our public statements. In either situation, we give false testimony by leaving something out of a story, telling a half-truth, twisting the facts, or inventing a falsehood. God warns us against deception. Even though deception is a way of life for many people, God's people must not adapt to it. To covet is to wish to have the possession that other people have. It goes beyond simply admiring someone else's possessions or thinking like, I'd like to have one of those. Coveting is like envying someone or resenting the fact that others may have what you don't have. God knows that possessions never made anybody happy for long. Since only God can supply all our needs, true contentment is found only in Him. When you begin to covet, try to determine if a more basic need is leading you to envy. For example, you may covet someone's success not because you want to take it away, but because you would like to feel as appreciated by others as that person is. If this is the case, pray that God will help you deal with your resentment and meet your basic need. I hope that my explanation helped you to better understand what each commandment means and why following these commandments are key to your salvation. When you are fighting in spiritual warfare, you have to understand that your obedience is the key you need to have faith that God works all things together for the good of those who love Him, who are called according to His purpose, per Romans 8:28. There are only 2 more episodes to this series, and I hope that you will continue to follow my warfare teachings so that you are able to handle your own battles when and if there's ever a battle that arises for you. I hope that you are gaining some type of knowledge from this series. I love you and thank you for watching.